1964 on the bandsaw. 1960 on this welder behind. This was the first heliac welder in Tampa. They brought it out to me to just try, and I liked it so well, I started welding the chromoly tubing with it. Prior to this heliarc welder, the chromoly was welded with a gas torch, which wasn't good. But this was the beginning of I was the first guy that made chromoly chassis. And this is Kermasina's Stucky car on the jig. We're fixing to put it back just like it was. But over here, this is a Stewart Weiner crankshaft balancer, 1957. This machine and the stop materials and stuff that came with it to do the work was about $7,000, and we were operating out of a little bombed out gas station on Nebraska Avenue. And I was getting my engines balanced in Miami by Jim Rathman, a former Indianapolis 500 winner, a guy that built his own cars, drove his own cars, tuned his own cars. And the guy that was the Alamite salesman for the grease guns and stuff, which we did a lot of in our gas station garage, we serviced a lot of people's cars. And he told me where this balancer was in Miami. He says, but Mr. Rathman doesn't balance for the general public, but he might balance your engines for you. And so I went down there once a month about, and Mr. Rathman would physically balance my engines while I watched him. I'd get there at 8 o'clock in the morning, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I usually drive out with my engine balanced in the trunk of my car. And one day the Stewart Weiner guy comes in and he says, you boys need your own balancer. He says, you're going down to Rathman's every month. He said, you should have your own balancer. I said, we'll never have our own balancer. They're too expensive. A home, a new 2-bedroom home, at that time in my life was only about $8,000. A complete home, imagine that, including a lot and everything. So you certainly ain't going to be buying no balancer if you're renting. So anyway, he said, Stewart Weiner's going to make you a deal that you can't refuse. He says, we just had a big trade show in Atlanta, and we had our very latest balancer on display, and we were balancing rotors for the general public and taking orders off of the machine. And he says, it's got some chips in it, and we can't sell it for new, but we'd like to get the new price. So we put this machine in your shop, no money down, and just 20% of the balancing proceeds every month. I'll come by, you get the tickets out of the drawer, we add them up, you get us a check for 20%, whatever it is. If you balance one engine, you're going to give us $10. As simple as that. It says if you don't balance any engines, you don't owe us nothing that month. We paid this machine off in 2 years. We balanced a few engines. He said, I'll never forget this. He said, Don, this machine is going to change your life. Now, mind you, I have pictures of it. Don's garage, and you see where the gas pumps used to be, and just 2 old doors, practically on the dirt, but they were kind of bricks. That was where we worked, and then the office, we didn't use none of that. It just was an office for my wife to send pay the bills and stuff. But the people who was originally there was living quarters upstairs, but it was too dilapidated, you know. That was the way it was done back in the 30s. They lived on the site. He says, customers are going to come from all over the southeastern part of the United States to get their engines balanced. You will be the only balancer in this part of the country commercially. He says, I predict within 5 years you'll have your own shop, you won't be renting, and you'll be Don's Speed Shop. Riley missed that a little bit. It was only 2 years. Wow. And we were down the street, up and running. I'll never forget. I said, there's nothing wrong with that machine, is there? He says, no, Don, it's a fine machine. It's going to give you years of service. 1957. Here it is. It's 2025. It works just as good today as ever. It was built in Chicago by Americans. It wasn't built in China. That stuff that comes out of there is just... That China cost me the world record. The first car over 200 with batteries. I was We warmed up at 189 miles an hour, which was a new world record. Then we turned the batteries up to go to 200, and our damn hub broke. That was welded with eutectic welding rod, the best welding rod in the world, I thought. We'd used it from way back in the 50s, making drive shafts and all this eutectic on that swamp rat one in the drive shaft. Never had a bit of trouble. Just sheared the weld on the hub. I come back here, we took it apart, I took a file and run it. It was like butter. I called up the welding supply. What's the deal here on this welding rod? I said, well, here's the number to call it, eutectic. I called them up, and they said, oh, we're so sorry, Mr. Garlits. We've had a lot of trouble with that rod since we outsourced it to China. That's all you have to say. They're not our friends. Anyway, this is a very sentimental thing right here. Let's go over here to the swamp rat 12.